We are not telling you what to do with your life and what you shouldn't do with your life. We're just telling you our own story, the things that we did, and the countless stories of our friends who have done the same things as us and those who did not and wish they had heard this message. So without further ado, in this video, my husband Gabe and I, we are talking about our decision to wait for marriage and why we are glad that we did.
But full disclosure, we are not making this video to tell you that we're any better than you or that we're any more righteous. We're telling you the truth that you deserve to know. You've had friends who did not have our same experience. Talk about that for a moment.
So I had a close friend growing up, and she would tell me, just like from a young age, she kind of was always in a relationship because her dad wasn't really there for her in her life. She wanted that male attention. She had her first kiss and like she was kind of nervous about it, but she felt pressured, and the guy was like a little older than her, and she felt like, you know, she didn't want to say no, and then he would break up with her. And that was like the first step to a series of her boundaries being crossed in ways that she wasn't comfortable with. But she felt like in order to keep the relationships she was in, it was important that she just did whatever the man wanted physically.
Wow. So almost it was like the price of the relationship.
Yeah.
What were the effects that you saw on your friends that were pressured and put into positions like that?
It led to a lot of pain whenever the relationship didn't work out, because when you are intimate with someone, like sex was designed by the Lord to glue husband and wife together.
Yeah.
And so there are these soul ties that are formed, and you become so enmeshed with one another, even if you don't realize what you're doing, even if you have no knowledge of this.
Some people would criticize videos like this and say that we're just some Christian extremists. Well, biblical principles are the truth, whether or not even you believe in them. Scientists have documented how when two people sleep together, their brains literally form this connection that only when they see one another and when they're around one another, it subconsciously sparks different wirings in their brain that are so attached to that person.
Yeah.
It literally leaves a mark on you.
And there are hormones that are like released, and it can become like this kind of dopamine effect.
Yeah. It's not just a transaction, is it?
No, it's not a transaction. And a lot of people, unfortunately, treat it this way. Or they think that that's what it's supposed to be like, when that's actually not what it's about.
So for you, why did you wait for marriage?
There were quite a few adults in my life who had opened up to me just about how they regretted not waiting for marriage and not valuing commitment in relationship before giving themselves away. Like so many people these days, they want the benefits of marriage without any of the commitment. Why would you expect to get a house without paying for it first?
Yeah.
You know, like you can't just live there. But so many people are just like, come enter my house rent free.
No, well, they actually do that. I mean, squatters now are viral, and squatters gain all the benefits of housing. And in their minds, they're just getting away with it because they're not paying the cost. But anyone with common sense would look at situations like that and understand how twisted those squatters are. And even more valuable than a home we could own is our very innermost parts of our body. But it's not just a part of our body. Sex isn't just your special parts. It is a part of your very personhood. For me, it was probably a miracle that I waited for marriage, because while I had the intentions of waiting for marriage, I did not understand the wisdom and boundaries that well. And so I got a little, I would say, too close. But thank God I waited for marriage. But that being said, I really learned that the boundaries that I did break and the more physical that I would get with those who I was in a relationship with, I found myself being more attached to them in ways that weren't reasonable, in ways that weren't even logical, in ways that didn't make sense. I look back at those relationships now and I'm just like, what was I doing in them for so long? Because I don't know what I was doing. But I see how the physical boundaries, and it's like the closer and closer I got to the person, the more I was compromising on my values and compromising on my very personhood and losing my joy.
Kissing and hugging and all those things, like obviously they are steps closer to sex. So the more that you allow in the relationship, the more likely you guys are going to cross further boundaries. It's going to be harder to not cross those boundaries. And the purpose of dating, really, and nobody talks about this enough, is to evaluate if they are your mate. Okay. And so if you don't take the time to get to know them, and then all of a sudden you're just giving your body away to them, you are more likely to stay with someone that you don't even realize who they are. Months go by, years go by, and it only gets harder to leave because you've made so many memories and you've spent so many years together and you've invested so much into this person. And it's like, why would I step away from this now? And so I remember feeling the same temptation as you and not wanting to leave because I had kissed them and I had hugged them and all of these things. And thankfully I saved myself for marriage because that was something I was like strict on. And physical affection, it just really puts blinders on us.
No, it really does.
You really have to be careful. You have to proceed with caution. And by the way, if you'd like more advice on boundaries and to hear more of what we did while we were dating, we actually wrote a guide to Christian dating that includes boundaries, conversations you should have, how to date, how to ask someone on a date, all kinds of different things. And we're continually editing it and adding more and more information. Click the link in the description and you will find our complete guide to Christian dating. And for any donation amount, you can get that straight to your email.
And people are testifying of not only how grateful they are that they can support a channel like this of the truth, but like this guide has been so helpful for them. It's made it so simple, so clear. They can write out their vision, write out their boundaries, and find the person that God has for them. It's really challenging to see how this world has collapsed into a place where both girls and guys are like viewing sex as a challenge, as like a record to break, having sex with 100 people a day. And it's just, that's heartbreaking. You can put on a good face on it about it. You can put on a good show that everything in your life is good and it's cool and it's just a bunch of fun. But if you're being honest with yourself, you would never say that. What would you have to say to the person that maybe has already had sex and they feel like it's just too late? Like, I've already given myself up, so why would I save myself now?
Now that you know what you know, set yourself free and value yourself and make the decision to wait. Yeah. Make the decision to wait for your future spouse, for the person who is going to not require that they see all of you before they marry you, but they are going to commit to you before seeing your body, because then you will know at the end of the day, I married someone who valued me not for my body,
above my body,
but for who I am.
Yes.
And just because they love me and they're willing to wait for me, they're willing to make that sacrifice that so many other people are not willing to make. And I want to encourage you, girl. Okay, you might feel like there are no men out there that are waiting for marriage. Well, let me tell you, this man is proof. And I know a lot of other men and knew a lot of other men who were also waiting for marriage. We get so many guys in our emails and our DMs asking us questions, telling us that they feel like there are no girls out there waiting for marriage. You might be shocked to hear that. And so guys, girls, please know you are not alone in the wait. If somebody broke up with you because you're waiting for marriage, goodbye.
Riddance.
Literally.
Seriously, good riddance. Understand your value enough where you're worth more than your body. And to that girl that feels like you just have to give in because he just desires it. Or we saw a comment the other day of a girl that said how she had found out her guy was even sleeping with other girls, but yet she felt so bonded to him. She felt like she loved him so much and that he loved her and he cherished her so well that she didn't want to hold him accountable, one, and set the boundaries and keep the boundaries and break up with him because obviously he wasn't valuing her. And so you got to call a spade sometimes. Again, this isn't to shame anyone. If you've already fallen, if you've already lost your virginity, it's not too late. You can start right now and save yourself for marriage. And it's never too late.
God loves you so much, and he's your heavenly Father, and he is a healer. He wants to heal those places in your heart that have been broken from past relationships, from times where you've given yourself away to someone and times that you regret. I want to encourage you that God has the ability to clear your mind and cleanse your mind of any bad memories. I want to encourage you, just because I know for my own life, there was a time that I was struggling with looking at like pornography, if I'm being honest.
Same.
I was exposed to it at a young age and just was just taken by curiosity. And I just felt like, oh my goodness, like this is horrible. Like, why am I looking at this stuff? Like, I know that this is wrong deep down. And God just said, Allie, just give this to me. Go and confess this to somebody, and I will set you free. And literally, I promise, this is the truth. it is like every memory of the things that I saw in those videos completely wiped from my memory. And ever since that moment, I have never had the desire to look, to search. Because I just know that's not who I am. And that's really what it is at the end of the day. You can't identify with these struggles, with these temptations that the enemy tries to throw your way. You need to realize that is not me. The old me has passed away and the new me has come because Christ cleanses me and makes me a new creation.
And he saw that you were worth it. He gave his whole life for you before he asked you to give him anything. Before he even asked you to say yes, he had already laid everything out. And that's actually the picture of the type of man you deserve as a woman, is actually Christ and the church, is an example of what a relationship should be. Not the Disney movies, not the Friday night shows. Those things are so temporary. And if you don't believe me, just see how their relationships in their life have worked out. If you look at like the average divorce rate of Hollywood relationships is like 4. It's some of the most tragic relationships.
And they're the people who are writing all the breakup songs.
Telling you how to get advice for your relationship. So take the hint. And when you really think about it, sleeping together is basically a guy saying, hey, I'll take all the benefits without any of the commitment, because at the end of the day, I still want to find someone next week. He'll never say that. He'll say that he loves you. You'll say that you love him. You'll never admit that. But that is the truth, because the only thing that prevents you from being married is the fact that you still want options.
Yeah.
And I know you don't even acknowledge that right now. You're like, I love this person. I'm never going to think about anyone else. Well, then go get married.
Yeah, put a ring on it.
Show us the evidence.
So you're probably wondering, well, what was our experience like? Well, we decided not even to kiss because we knew that could even like lead to more things. And so, there were people in our life telling us like, do you not even love each other? Like, why wouldn't you kiss? And there are going to be people that misunderstand you.
That question you.
But don't worry about them.
Their
not
opinion
does not matter.
Yes, they're not the ones in the relationship. They're not the ones who are running after God like you are. A lot of people made fun of us for the boundaries we set and how serious we were for saving ourselves from marriage. But none of those people were at our wedding criticizing us, telling us how bad of a job we did. Instead, actually, we found our marriage and relationship to be all worth it, and really we haven't heard back from those people ever since, and it hasn't impacted our life whatsoever. And that's what you learn about all the people that criticize you now. They're gone next week. Ultimately, the most biblical one line of advice that you could ever have for dating, for saving yourself for marriage, for any part of this, is to run after God with all of your heart, and either someone can run with you or not. And there is no in between. There is no gray area. There is no middle ground. Never compromise your walk with God where you are faithful to him. You don't need to practice. You don't need to give the car a test drive 200 times before you know if it's right or not. God made men and women to fit, and you don't even really have to practice that much. It has been so overcomplicated and overthought and culturized. It was lovely. As awkward as maybe we expected it to be, it wasn't, and it was beautiful, and it was lovely, and it was godly. But what the best part about it was going to bed at night and not having to say goodbye anymore, and that's what made it worth it. And I couldn't fathom the feeling that I would have had giving myself to you like that and then telling you, all right, see you later. I don't know, I would have felt so empty. But after marriage, the ability to look at ourselves and know that we were the only ones, that we had waited for one another, meant the world to us.
There was such a peace about knowing that we had waited for so long for this moment. And like a lot of people, I think the reason that they think it's going to be awkward and it's going to be this horrible experience and you're not going to know what you're doing is because most people have sex from a very young age where they really aren't matured yet. They don't really know what's going on. Of course, it doesn't make sense. Of course, it's going to be awkward. Of course, because it's with somebody that you barely even know, with someone that hasn't committed their life to you. Like a lot of people expect it to be this certain way, but they've never actually waited till marriage and experienced that. So they can't even speak from that perspective. And so I will just say that like it was such a beautiful experience. And like obviously like we were nervous in a sense, like in our own way, because this is something new, but it was so beautiful. To this day, I would never change things. I am so glad that we made the decision that we did.
And we just encourage that young person, or even if you're older as well, watching this video right now, you don't have to give in to anyone else's demands. You are worth it. And if someone is not willing to commit to this like you are, good riddance. You are so much better off without them.
Yeah.
It's not a knock on you.
Yeah. And it's not
Said the same
it's
thing.
not even a knock on them. Like, love them and just send them
Bless
the
them as
other
they
way.
go.
Like, we
Yep.
hope and pray that they will have that same revelation and value themselves just as much.
And we've talked about boundaries before, actually. And in fact, everyone watching has only 5 seconds to click right above my hand right here to watch our boundaries video, where you're going to understand everything you need to do.